Hello everyone, I'm Elisheva Gilbert. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Sasfin. Today we have the privilege of being joined by our CEO of Asset Finance, Linda Frohlich. Not only is she an incredible businesswoman, but she is also a very passionate contributor to society. Linda and her team founded the Sasfin Wish List many years ago, and today I have the privilege of chatting to her about what it is about and who has benefited from this incredible fund that was started. Linda, when and how did the wish list start?
Sure, it was a long time ago. I don't know if you all remember the Jeremy Mansfield wish list.
Yes.
And I think if you listen to the Angel wish list now, and we all used to arrive at work, and I think many times in pre-COVID times where you were stuck for 2 hours in traffic, you ended up looking at the car next to you on the right, looking at the car on the left, and you would just see tears. And then people would arrive at the office and would all say, did you listen to that wish list? And it was like so emotional. And the AEs and the sales team were talking one day, and because they are commission earners, and they every month can earn a little bit extra, where the average person earns a salary. And only sometimes, if they're lucky enough to work for an amazing company like Sasfin, can they maybe get a bonus at the end of the year. And we were talking about it, and we said, why don't we take, as a sales team, a little bit of the commission we earn every month and build a fund and build our own wish list, but for our own people? Because what big corporates forget sometimes, or bigger companies, is that you're listening to all this pain going on out there, and you have people working for you under your very nose that are going through the same pain and the same challenges. So we started collecting and putting a little bit of money in, and then we realized the reach and the needs. And for me personally, it was the most humbling experience because I'm such an optimist, and I believe in my culture, and I believe in my people, and my team was always so happy, motivated, inspired. You think everything's okay and all the pain's out there. And when I realized, when you started getting the request and you realized how many people within Sasfin, Sunderland, are struggling, properly struggling, but they come to work every day and they give of their best with a smile on their face, and you didn't know. So the initiative started from, so thank you, Jeremy Mansfield, and it's built. Then it progressed to the rest of the group because it was really much a rentals asset finance initiative. And then I think maybe you spoke to me and someone spoke to me, and then they said, but there's someone else in one of the other teams who's struggling. I'm like, this isn't just for asset finance. Send your requests. Then we've taken it to Exco, so more people, and it's become actually the most incredible, amazing, heart, beautiful thing that's just rolled into something amazing and beautiful and fantastic. And yeah.
I'd like to pick up on something important that you said. Often organizations look externally in order to contribute to society. And you've always said, you start first with your people. Before you look outside, look within. And that's super important. I mean, there's a reason they contribute to society. Those words are right up front in our purpose statement, because that's the essence of who we are. We're a purpose-led organization. We're a people-first organization. And that has definitely been part of our success. So Linda, will you share with us some examples of the types of requests that the wish list receives?
You would think that you would get these big, enormous requests where it's a lot of money. Sometimes it's as simple as buying groceries for someone. You see us. Is that you find out that someone in your team doesn't even have food for the month, but they're coming to work every day, but they've run out of money. They've paid their school fees, their bond, and we'll get a request saying, can we buy a grocery voucher? And that is actually the scariest thing about that. It's probably the most common request we get. Because as the wish list, someone doesn't say, oh, but we're short of money. We don't give money. We really find out. Jeannie, who runs it with me, is, the most incredible woman. She investigates and she looks, what is the need? She speaks to the person. What really is your need? And then we will contribute by either buying a grocery voucher, not giving the money to buy. We've got to, when people have been stuck because their husbands are sick and they haven't been getting out, actually delivering the food to their houses. School fees. There's so many times where they come to us and say, listen, our child's going to be kicked out of school because we're 6 months in arrears and we cannot, because we've been trying to buy groceries, we need to pay the school fees. So the real common ones is actually groceries, school fees, medical care. So these are big, these are basic human necessities. This isn't, I want to throw a party, I'm turning 50, or I want to buy a nice car. These are basic human needs and rights. So Discovery will maybe cover a certain amount of we had someone whose father was dying of cancer and needed dialysis. So Discovery paid for 6 sessions, but he needed a session every week. The average person cannot go paid. You know what the cost of dialysis is? So for 6 months, we paid weekly. Unfortunately, he died. But it was just the pure medical care. We had another employee whose daughter had gone through something quite traumatic, and medical aid paid for 3 sessions. It's 3 sessions. If you've been traumatized and something, do you think you can go into a psychiatrist's room and have 3 sessions and now you're okay? So the wish list realized that this young girl needed a little bit more help and paid for 10 psychiatric treatments. The storms we've had, where we've had staff where their roofs have blown off their houses, and they can't afford to go pay for a piece of corrugated iron to put on the roof to stay warm. So we will go and pay for their roof or a window. Another lady didn't understand that when she purchased a car, she did it with a huge residual. And 1 car for 5 families. And when it came to the end of her installments, so everybody learned to read your financials, understand the agreements you're entering into. They suddenly said, well, here's this balloon payments, otherwise you've got to return your car or we're repossessing your car. 1 car, 5 families. So we paid for that residual. Otherwise, she didn't have that lump sum to ensure that her car wasn't taken away. I mean, if we don't understand the impact on the average person, with the interest rates increasing to 11.75% from 7% in the space of 2 years, after struggling with COVID, it's put pressure on everybody just to service their bonds, their cars. So it's the most incredible thing that all the people who have contributed to this and are helping just people survive. And I think the interesting observation for me is pre-COVID, we helped. And it was amazing. After COVID, the emotional trauma. So it used to be very much necessities. Now what you're doing is you're dealing with a lot of emotional trauma. And I think we can't ignore the fact that that the economy is so hard out there and it's so tough. And so many people have lost their jobs. Sorry. That's not because I've seen it in my people, where their husbands have lost their jobs or their wives have lost their jobs. There's someone in my team that I really do love, who's had to, 5 families had to move out and move into one and she's like the sole breadwinner for so many people. So to have the privilege and the ability to help just a little bit, because it's not getting them out of the hole, but just a little bit, to make sure there's bread on the table. And that's tanks of petrol to pay someone. Sometimes we'll just say we'll pay for 3 tanks of petrol so you can get to work. Another person in our team got robbed. Their cell phones were taken. So if my cell phone's stolen, I have insurance. I phoned Vodacom. I said, I need insurance. I need a new phone. A day is probably the same day your phone's delivered. So many people don't have insurance on their phone. So we went and we got them, both the husband and the wife, a cell phone, just so they could have contact with their children. So yeah, no, it's really an incredible, humbling initiative that keeps you in reality of everyday life. And Elisheva, these are our people. Throughout the whole group of Sasfin, our people. And like you say, charity starts at home. And what it's also done for me as a leader is to truly understand. I've always tried to understand my people, but when I see these requests come forward, that depth of understanding of why, I'm like, why aren't you always happy? Why aren't you always on the go? We're going to do 100 million type. It's just to understand what people are going through. It's just humbling and makes everything real, and it just makes you have the ability to lead in a different way with empathy. We had that Nelson Mandela Day thing when the headmaster of one of the schools said, before you shout at the children for being late for school, for wearing the wrong uniform, understand how far they had to walk and they had no food in their bellies. And it's the same thing that happens under our own roof. So why is someone non-performing? Do they have food in their belly? And it's sometimes as real as that.
I think two things that came to mind is that the small things really are the big things. It doesn't have to be a massive request.
Yes.
The basics need to be in place. And the fact that you and your team started this initiative with that in mind is huge. I also heard the word privilege coming out of your mouth, not in the context of we are privileged, but it is a privilege to help. And I think that's massive. That word carries a lot of weight because you actually see it as a duty, as a citizen of this country, as a leader within this organization, that it's our duty to be able to look after our people, but it's also a privilege. And I think that takes it out of the context of kind of a hand out versus a hand up. And when you use that word, for me, it talks to the approach. When somebody approaches the wish lists, it's confidential. The names aren't shared with anyone. I get involved with the wishes from time to time. I don't know who those individual people are, but I know that yourself and Jeannie manage it on a very personal level, but it's also on a very confidential level. So I'd like to understand, how is the wish list funded?
So it's funded by us. It's funded by you. It's funded by the people of Sasfin. It started as a sales initiative. When we realized the needs and how many people actually do need help, we realized it's actually a little bit small. So Michael Sassoon contributes to the wish list. The Exco team, we helped someone who was really, really struggling. After we helped them, they're still struggling. Financially, they're not in a very good place. They signed up for 50 Rand a month contribution. So no amount is too big or too small. Some people might put 500 Rand a month. Some people put only as and when they can. Some people don't give, and then when it's a bonus time or something happens, they'll come and say, can we add 100 Rand to the wish list for the year? It's okay, because no amount is too big or too small. So it's funded by the people of Sasfin, the fellow family members, because I see Sasfin as a family. We love and we care for each other. So it's funded by all of us, by the Sasfin family, contributes to this to allow to help. And maybe one day they might need help too, and we'll be there for them.
So it is true that charity begins at home.
Yes.
And I'm glad that you mentioned our CEO, Michael Sassoon. We have this glorious venue on the 14th floor in our offices in Sandton. And it was his idea that we rent it out to external parties who would like to use the venue. Yes. And that the venue hire fee actually becomes a donation to the wish list. And so this has been a new revenue stream for the wish list.
And it's huge.
It's huge because the demand is getting greater,
Yes.
Interest rates continue to go up. The environment and the economy in which we are operating at the moment is very, very tough. And I'm sure you've only shared kind of the top 10 of, the kind of requests that you're getting. But I think that there's probably a lot of people that don't come forward that should actually come forward.
Yes.
So what do you have to say to somebody who may feel a bit shy, a bit embarrassed? It is hard to ask. Some people really struggle to ask. What is your message to them?
There's two ways of requests that come to us. Okay. One is by somebody who's close to that person. That you can nominate. You don't have to say, well, because people hate to ask for themselves because they feel vulnerable, they feel scared. I think they often feel that they'll be looked down upon. Where Jeannie is also quite amazing, by the way, because I know sometimes, not because of who I am, but because of the position I hold, that people might be intimidated by me, which always amazes me because I'm like, what? Generally, Jeannie will be, you don't have to come to me. So you'll be nominated by somebody who knows that this particular person is struggling. We had one on Friday. This person is so proud. They've been at Sasfin for 20 years. And when I say they won, they're like, no. This person came to us and said, please reach out. The first approach from that person when Jeannie phones them, so I don't phone you because I know it can be a little bit, was, no, I don't need help. And Jeannie will probably, she can sometimes spend an hour, 2 hours on the phone saying, just tell me your story. We're not here to embarrass you. Nobody else will know about it. We want to help you. So to say to people, don't be afraid. Don't be vulnerable. Don't be embarrassed. There's so many people in the same boat. And if it can make your life just a little bit easier, your Sasfin family is there to help you. And it's okay. It's okay because you are not alone. I often say to my people, just be vulnerable. When I chat to people in general, it's not a weakness. It actually takes a very brave person to stick up their hand and say, I need help. That's brave. That's courage. It's not that we're going to look badly on you. I need help. It's okay. And we are there to help you. I would feel so much more upset if I knew someone wasn't eating and was struggling and they didn't tell anybody. That's, think of your children, think of your family, think of yourself. It's brave to put up your hand. It's not a weakness.
In order to be courageous, you need to be vulnerable. And I think what you've done today is something really spectacular, is you've created a space for people to come and speak up. And that's very, very powerful. And, you're full of heart. You're a person full of heart. We feel that you're speaking from your heart and your heart is spilling out of your eyes. So I think anyone watching this today would really feel that you really genuinely care. They don't need to be embarrassed. They just need to be courageous. And if they don't feel they can come to you, they can go to Jeannie. If they don't feel they can go to Jeannie, they can speak to their line manager, a colleague, and a colleague can confidentially interact with the members of the Sasfin Wish List in order to fulfill that wish.
Yeah.
Because you said something very powerful. You'd be more upset if someone didn't come forward and you found out afterwards that they didn't have food on their table. So the need is growing. We can see that in the numbers. What is your call to action for those who are able to give?
For me, when I say to you it's a privilege, it gives me a purpose to make a difference. So it's not just, I'm going to contribute to this. It's that genuinely you're going to feel better. You're going to feel like I can make a difference. So many people in life saying, what can I do? I'm just one person. My little bit, every little bit makes a difference. So another example is, if you cannot give money, we had a situation with a baby. Someone had, from their sister, they had to suddenly take over a baby. It wasn't their baby, but they needed to look after their baby. And they had nothing. And we called to the team and said, anyone with baby clothes, so many people have had a baby or they're sitting there, can you please bring, we had bags of clothes for this mom that's not a mom. Now she can clothe her child. So it can be love, it can be support. You might find someone suffering, and this has happened, by the way, from depression, loneliness, and that's a big thing after COVID because people have insulated themselves. They think it's okay to sit at home every weekend. They think it's okay. Oh no, but we want to work at home. They've forgotten how to interact with human beings, and human beings need touch. They need love. You need to be able to look at someone and go, that person needs help. So this person who's suffering from depression, who was very lonely, I've said to them, listen, appeal to some other youngsters, because it was a young person. It was a young person who was alone. And I said, let's form a group of other lonely people, even if you go to movies or you sit at the office. Just spend some time with similar people who are going through the same thing. So it can be time, it can be clothing. We might call on a need. We had another situation where someone's house burnt down in Cape Town. And we said, well, who's got pots, who's got pans, who's got a duvet? So there's so many situations, scenarios that might not necessarily have to be financial. It can be emotional support. It can be that like I said, you've got stuff hanging around the house. Come and support your Sasfin family, because while doing that, you're feeding your own soul and your own being. And it can be by any form. It can be a smile, it can be monetary, it can be whatever. When the call-in comes, we don't know what's going to happen next. If I'm waiting, this huge flood that's happening from Western Cape all the way to George, I guarantee someone in our team has been impacted by that. And I'm very sure when I get down to my office, there's Jeannie's going to be on the phone to me. And also we move fast. It isn't like, oh, we got to get approval here. Jeannie will phone me at 2 o'clock in the morning to say, Linda, we need to help this person now. It's because we understand it's not something. If you suddenly need medical attention, there was someone we had to send to Zimbabwe because they were Zimbabwean and they weren't covered by any form of medical aid now. When we heard about it, the very next day, he was on transport to Zimbabwe to get medical attention. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. But you know what? The wish list and everyone contributing the wish list gave him, he was with his family.
And that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
That is the privilege.
It's the privilege of it.
Letting his family know just how much we care. Something that you spoke about really resonated with me around the effects of COVID and isolation and working from anywhere and loneliness. And when you need to ask for help, so you're so withdrawn from the environment, it becomes even harder to ask for help. I was reading a piece of research where it said we're missing those small interactions.
Yes.
So if we go into a meeting, there's always that 5 minutes before or there's 5 minutes afterwards that we get to have a chat. How's it going? How are your boys doing, Linda? And you will tell me or share a story with me that you wouldn't have been able to do so on Teams because everybody comes on at the same time. And now you can't have those sidebar conversations, which means I don't know what's happening in your life, or you sitting next to me in the office, or I'll walk by you when we're making a cup of coffee. And so I guess I'm also trying to encourage people that whilst we may think we are introverts and it's better for us to be at home, what happens is over time, we become more and more constricted. And that call to courage has to be even louder. You need to come and you need to ask, you need to engage, but we also lose touch with other people's needs. Yeah. And we think we're in a terrible situation because we're out of touch with the situations that others also find themselves in. So it's not to lessen ours, but it's once again to get that emotional, physical support, a hug, a smile. You know, that's also part of the Sasfin Wish List, because the wish list is a culture. It's not just a donation. It's not just a plate of food. It's actually sending the message that we care. It's sending a message that we see you. Yeah. It's sending a message that we admire your courage and that you must choose courage over comfort, because from that comes more comfort. And it's been incredible chatting to you today. You are a person that's full of heart, and just me listening to you, I feel encouraged. I feel like you've created an incredibly safe space. And I want to say thank you on behalf of Sasfin, those who give, those who receive, those who still are going to receive and still to give, for this initiative, for taking the time and the energy to create it and to keep it going. Because at Sasfin, we don't say we contribute to society. It's not just a board on a wall or a saying on a wall. We actually live it and we do it. And so thank you for everything that you contribute. You truly contribute to society, and you truly epitomize what Sasfin's culture stands for.
Thank you. Me and my team.
You and your team.
And never forget, hugs are free.
Hugs, especially from Linda, hugs are free. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. Thanks, Elisheva.